So what are some of the mistakes that are common for new landscape business owners? One of them is that more work is always better. Now, early on in my career, I got caught in this trap, and I thought that running multiple jobs was the way to wealth. And so I would have 3 or 4 jobs running. And there's a relatively high turnover rate in the landscape industry, meaning that it's difficult to keep people around and train them to do all the various things involved in landscapers and not have them go off and start their own company. Because there's very little barrier. If someone knows how to treat your clients well and do all the aspects of landscaping, what do they want a boss for? Now, as a result, there's a learning curve. Everyone's making a certain amount of mistakes almost every day. So my job became one of running around, finding out what the client had told this employee or that didn't make any sense, or discovering that this client had changed their mind and that interrupts with the schedule that we'd planned for that day when this crew was going to head over to this other job. And my job was just to drive from one job to the other job, to the other job, to the other job, and then back to the other job in order to put out the fires that had by that time happened over a 5-hour period. And so I got very little work done. Now, the problem is I was the most knowledgeable, efficient, competent worker. And I'm now running around doing very little. The other problem then is keeping work for all the employees that, come on boss, we need a new job. We got to keep work up. Now, when you're under the pressure to get 5 new jobs after 5 new jobs after 5 new jobs, the tendency is to underbid something, is to push a client who isn't actually ready or clear about what they want because you need a job. So now the client senses that you're not acting solely out of their interest. You're acting to get a job for your crew, which devalues your trustworthiness in the eye of the client, which makes them more suspicious. Because if you behave in a way that is clearly about what's good for you at the client's expense, they have no legitimate basis to trust you. So if you've broken that trust in order to acquire the job in your schedule, now the client has to double check every single thing you're doing with a critical eye. There's a suspicion there that makes your work harder for the entirety of that job. There's also then a problem getting an excellent reference if the client believes that you have, legitimately or otherwise, been seeking to gain work rather than do what's best for the client in the way that's best for the client at the schedule that's best for the client. Now, if you do what's best for the client in the way the client wants, in the schedule that the client wants, you've got an impeccable reference. But how can you juggle that 5 different times at once? And what if a client has an anxiety that comes up, but you've now got to go meet another client because you've got an appointment there? So do you interrupt the client who's got an anxiety coming up to go talk with the other client? And then you come back, rushing back right after that meeting, but now the client's at work, right? So you missed the window. Now there's a window of separation in which the client has an anxiety that didn't get addressed. Now, who gets blamed because something goes wrong because something didn't get communicated? You did for rushing off, not the client for going to work. So it's harder to have a bigger company. Now, my big brainstorm and insight came when I added up all the various warranty issues that came from running multiple jobs. The fact that I wasn't working, all of the repairs because I wasn't there 100% of the time, all the repairs on all the trucks. When I added up all the expenses, they added up to the same net profit as one efficiently run, highly profitable job in which I was able to do the work that I was best at. I'm a very skilled heavy equipment operator, for example, something you can't do when you're rushing out around putting out fires. So the next thing that I discovered was that my schedule of being leisurely with time, enjoying time off, traveling, etc., conflicted with full-time staffers. I discovered that using temp labor when I needed it, in the quantity that I needed it, could allow me a tremendous amount of flexibility with time, could allow me to do certain very complicated jobs that couldn't keep anyone else busy. If someone gives you a 40-station irrigation timer to program and double check and check all the emitters and tie in with a weather station, if I give that to a crew member who's never seen that timer before, I might as well give it to a monkey. Because if the crew member thinks they know what they're doing and says, oh, it's all taken care of, that's almost worse than not knowing what's going on, because the client wants a result. Now, if I need to spend 10 hours a day for a couple of days to sort that all out, and I really don't want any distractions because it's hard enough to keep all those zones separately marked without calls, what are we going to do next, we finish this, etc. I may do a very lucrative job completely solo for a couple of days and then bring 5 people on to do a lot of grunt work and prep work on another job, and then do 3 people for a couple of days. In other words, growing bigger was not more profitable. And in some cases, the high turnover, etc., it's easier to be free with time using temp labor than trying to contort the company to keep a set number of people employed year-round, particularly if you value travel and leisure time. Now, another mistake is that you've got to keep a job. Someone offers you, a job, and they say, I've only got $20,000, and I want to do $50,000 worth of work. You got to make it work, right? You can't just turn away work. Well, particularly if you've got to keep a crew busy, there is that pressure. But sometimes simply saying no to the job is a better option. Or redesigning it and showing 2 or 3 ways that you can do it profitably within the budget. Not the $50,000 job, but this and this and this and this. Now, another common mistake is that we're landscapers, we're not business people. That we don't have to figure out how to save money on taxes, that's not our thing. That we don't have to be great client communicators, that's not our thing. We're just the people that show up and do what clients want. Wrong. Clients don't always know what they want. Clients want communication. Clients want scheduling and budget. And the interface of expectation management, contract writing, the ability to structure taxes can mean more to a business and more to your bottom line than actually knowing how to landscape. And if you run your company well, you will experience that you will get paid thousands of dollars an hour to make certain decisions, to make certain judgment calls that make a lot of money for the company, even while people good at their job doing the work are not making as much money. In other words, the software of the company, the interface of the company, whether it's in web design, communication protocol, design protocol, decision-making, tax management, can be more valuable than the actual work and certainly affect your bottom line as much. Now, and that brings into another mistake, that if I do the work well, I will automatically make money. That's not the case. It's very common for landscapers not to do a rigorous analysis of the cost of downtime, the cost of insurance, the cost of all the peripheral fees, the cost of taxes, and be able to bid a project profitably. If you do excellent work and lose money, you will have a lot of work because you will be the cheapest in town. And if you're good and cheap, everyone will want you to work for them. And the more work you do, the more quickly you will go bankrupt if your prices are too low. So it's not just about the work, and there is a balance point. Another mistake that's very common is not knowing how to sell or how to market, not being comfortable selling or marketing. Another can be contract writing. I know how to do the work, we've talked about it, but now I need to put it into a contract so that 3 months later, when the incentive and power dynamic has changed. You see, when you're starting off a job, the client wants to get the lowest price and they want to get it done. So they may say, oh, it's fine, whatever you want to do, I'm sure it'll be fine, it'll be great. Just get it done and give me a low price. I'm not a fussy client, I'm a really easy client, I want the lowest possible price. Well, as soon as the job is done and the client has to pay up, now the dynamic has changed, because now if the client becomes fussy, they can ask for more. And so the problem comes in the contract. Because if you can show them in writing, this is what this says, this is what we agreed here, here's a video of our conversation, etc., this is our agreement, then that can't suddenly change. But otherwise, you see this amorphous dynamic go on from very sweet and generous clients that, can I give you another cookie, another cup of tea, just give me a low price. Now become, that's not good enough, and I'm not going to pay you until you do this and this and this. And it's like, it's not in the contract. If you get into a fight with a client, you're fighting with your references again and again and again. So how do you write a contract even when they have that impulse? Because what's real is that most of the time, a human being will not violate what they've written down and agreed to in black and white. But they will twist their memory, and they will say, no, I never said that. Or they will say, I said something else. Or if it's not discussed, they'll ask for more when it's in their interest. So these are some of the mistakes that it's very normal to make that can cost literally well over $100,000 to make and learn the hard way. And they're one of the reasons that I'm excited about preparing the Landscape Success course, which is really for my past self. Something that if I could go back to when I was 17, when I was 18, when I was 20, when I was 25, when I was 30, and teach them what's helping me create the well-being, the lifestyle, the success, the money, the freedom that I want and have now. How could they have gotten there faster than the 27 years that it's taken me to get here today?